Here are 10 evolutions that you need to stay away from. I made this video a few months ago, and most of the evolutions that were bad then are still bad now. So while a balance change could probably change what evos are on this list, I doubt that's gonna happen. So starting off with the bats, they are an evolution to stay away from for a multitude of reasons. One being how much ranged units have just increased in viability in the meta. But for the most part, ever since we've seen minions get that range buff that makes them just like insane range and insane DPS, at their peak they had 25% use rate on Ultimate Champion. They have completely replaced the bats. So not only are you playing a better version of the bats in the minions that literally do every single thing better except they cost one more elixir, you also free up an evo slot in your deck. And with 40 evolutions in the game, the evo bats just kind of get replaced by something else, which is almost always an option in any deck in the game. Now, the next evolution to stay away from is the Dart Goblin. Now, not necessarily is this a bad evo. It's pretty mid. It's not great, but it's not a bad evo. The reason you want to stay away from the Dart Goblin is because the normal Dart Goblin is a really, really strong card. And usually, you're not going to, even with fast cycle decks and bait decks where you bait out spells or you outcycle your opponent's counters to the Dart Goblin, you're not often going to be able to get the full value out of the poison effect. Usually opponents aren't going to let you get 8 shots off with the Dart Goblin to get the max poison stage. The moral of the story is the Dart Goblin is a really effective card by itself. He's one of the best cards in the game, and usually you can get the same value out of the normal Dart Goblin that you get out of the Evo Dart Goblin. So it's more worth it to save your your evo slots for other cards. Like for example, in bait decks, you're going to be able to play Valk and Barrel, which opens up more opportunities for you than if you had Dart Goblin taking up a spot in which he's already really good. Now, if you guys have noticed, there is a very, very, very big pattern going on with evolutions released in 2025. You make a really broken evolution that everybody wants to buy, completely dominates the meta, and then nerf it to the ground after it gets removed out of the Pass Royale. The Furnace is victim to this in a big way. It received like 6 or 7... oh my god, balance changes, it literally did. And they didn't really help, but once it wasn't the featured thing anymore, because they won't immediately do it the season after, they'll do it like 2 or 3 seasons after. They'll give it like a shitty balance change, like 0.1 seconds first hit speed to make it look like, oh, we're listening to the community. But they're not. The Furnace just isn't really a good card anymore. He got nerfed literally a bajillion times, and the Furnace isn't that great when you have things doing way more damage and way more splash in the current meta, like Witch, Musketeer, Baby Dragon even. Next up is Goblin Giant. Although Goblin Giant is a fun card to use, every single tank in the game is better than him. And yes, I will throw the Ice Golem on that list. Wait. Also, the Rune Giant doesn't have enough health to qualify for that, so that doesn't count. But the Goblin Giant Evo, really, the Goblin Giant as itself is just really crap. So you're at an immediate downside to using Goblin Giant in general. While the Evo is still pretty bad, it's nice to have those goblins sometimes, but not when every other option is better. You're going to be better off if you want to play beatdown decks using a Giant, given he also has a hero form. You don't even need the hero form, just the regular Giant is better than the Goblin Giant in Goblin Giant decks. Like, you literally would be better off playing Golem, Giant, even E-Golem than Goblin Giant, which is completely erased from the meta, even in Sparky decks. Gob Giant Sparky is just now Giant Sparky. Now, the Knight is an Evo that really isn't even that bad. However, you cannot use an Evo and a hero at the same time. So if you do have the Hero Knight, it is better in every single way than the Evo, and you free up an Evo spot and you get more potential out of it. The Evo Knight, I guess, if you don't have the Hero Knight and you really don't have a better evolution to use, because the Knight is a pretty mid-tier evolution, I wouldn't, like, you can use him. It's not going to be terrible, but I wouldn't pursue the Evo Knight, especially with the hero being out. And definitely, I haven't seen a single Evo Knight deck in playing the game in the last month, actually. It's all been Hero Knight or Base Knight. There are much better evolutions to use, even though he's really not that bad. There's just better ones, and the hero is much, much safer and, you know, well, not cheaper, but a better option. Now we have the Ice Spirit, which again isn't just, I'm not putting it on the list because it's just horrible. The Ice Spirit, given that there are 40 evolutions in Clash Royale, has kind of got phased out. It used to be, it was one of the earliest evos released in the game, and now it's kind of one of those cards that just got shoved to the side. You'd use it in every single cycle deck because most cycle decks didn't have evos for their deck. They just had Skellies and Ice Spirit. So you'd see Skellies and Ice Spirit, and then slowly over time, win conditions like Royal Hog started getting added. Cannon got added to all these cycle deck evos, and now the Ice Spirit really isn't used that often, and when he is, it's not as effective as using a different evo in the deck that has more potential. Now Bomber, one of my personal favorite evos. I don't want to see any comments on that. It's fun because you can snipe things with him. It's just pretty much completely useless, and was a decently, like, you could nichely use him sometimes before the Bomber got that stray nerf and the balance changes that made him die to one less tower hit, one less baby dragon hit, made him die to the mega minion, made him stop. I mean, he's been getting shadow nerfs for a little while. He eventually, I forget when they made him stop hitting spirits in one shot, but he's just been nerfed so many times. The Evo used to hit twice, if you remember back in the day, but even there's just no reason to use him. Ranged cards are so much better than the Bomber, and even before he got his nerf, he wasn't really being used that often. Not a good card, not a good evo, not worth pursuing at all. Now, the Barbarians don't necessarily have a place in the meta. Most decks right now are running really DPS heavy cards, as well as like a mini P.E.K.K.A, as well as things like Skeleton Army and short swarm cards, as well as Fireball being a really popular spell. The Barbarians, just for 5 elixir, is a really expensive investment to get something you can get for cheaper out of a lot of other cards. They don't really spell bait that well. They also, as an evo, don't upgrade the card that much. So if you do really want to use Barbarians, the few Barbarian decks that are out there are fine using normal Barbarians, and really they get value sometimes, but you can make a card in Clash Royale get value in any circumstance. Like, you can create a circumstance for them to get value. It's really just not as good as an option as almost every other swarm card in the game and almost every other DPS card in the game. Their role is kind of, it's a bad hybrid. You're probably not surprised to see Goblin Drill on the list, because Goblin Drill really has been the absolute floor of evos. I put it in the bottom of my evo ranking, like 80% of the evo rankings, and it has gotten better, which is cool. The thing is, Drill kind of sucks right now, and we still have the issue of, hey, Goblin Drill evo got a little bit better, but a little bit better isn't enough to match the Evo Snowball, the Evo Tesla, the other Evos you'll see in drill decks. There's so many different variations, you know, some even run Firecracker, you know. The Goblin Drill is just not good enough to replace those other Evos, so it's not really being used that often. Although it is kind of fun to play, and I've definitely gotten some good Evo drill value, especially in 2v2. It's gotten better. It's not the worst Evo in the it might be. I haven't done an Evo ranking in a month. It's all right. I wouldn't pursue it. Goblin Drill players don't even mainly use it, so I wouldn't use it either. Now, if you're an Expo 3.0 user, disregard this. Use the Evo Archers because they're just in the deck and you don't want to change the deck. If you're not, don't get this card. Although they're a nice niche glass cannon that can really do cool things when you predict opponents, or maybe you arrows bait, or maybe you get the perfect circumstance or they get bonus damage. There are so many better ranged card options to go after, and the archers in any deck outside of 3.0 can be replaced and should be replaced. There is not a viable argument for using this card over pretty much anything else in the game, which minions, I mean, I can name a ton of cards that have just replaced archers completely and get more consistent DPS. Yes, some of these cards don't have as high of a ceiling as the archers could potentially have, but it's just not worth it. Like Musketeer too, like archers are just not in any circumstance worth it, even though they're 3 elixir instead of maybe 4 or 5. At the end of the day, you want to have the most fun playing Clash Royale that you possibly can. For me, that's creating content, and for you, maybe that's playing one of the Evos on this list. If that's floating your boat, then go ahead and do it. I love you guys. Peace.